Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Well, now, Amnesty International, for those who may not be familiar with it, has to do with human rights, those who perhaps live in countries around the world where they don't have the same freedoms that we're privileged to have. I remember, and maybe it's just my age, my first memory of Amnesty International was mid to late 80s. There were these fantastic commercials with Glenn Close and a bunch of other big stars at the time where they were toasting to freedom and pointing out that there was somebody who was currently in prison for doing just that.
That's a very good memory you have, and in fact, those little public service announcements are some of the bonus material on this new DVD box set. Wow. Amnesty itself has been around since 1961, and its mission is very simple. It's just to let people be aware of human rights. We all have them. There's this thing called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was created to give everybody their freedoms. So Amnesty started using music and entertainment to draw attention to the message in the mid-'70s with a thing that was way back called the Secret Policeman's Ball. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
I was the producer of those original shows. I hasten to add I was only 3 years old when I was producing them. I was a very young producer.
Greatest talk ever.
They started out with Monty Python and Co., and they were mainly comedy shows. But about 1979, we started involving rock and rollers like Pete Townsend and Sting, and that's what led to the human rights concerts that started here in America in 1986.
I remember also Peter Gabriel had a song called Biko about Stephen Biko. Some people will remember the movie Cry Freedom with Denzel Washington and Kevin Kline. I think for my generation, anyway, growing up in the 70s and 80s, that was where it really started to first come to my attention.
Absolutely. And, of course, it's time-honored that music and entertainment is a way of drawing attention to serious issues. And that's what the artists Sting and U2 and Peter Gabriel and Bruce Springsteen wanted to do, which is to say, look, come along to this concert and you'll find out more about human rights and about Amnesty International. And in 1986, they started with a tour of the U.S. that was 6 concerts, and the police even reunited. It started out as just Sting on the tour, and then halfway through the tour, he reunited the police who'd been on hiatus for a couple of years. That tour went fantastically well in 86. Then in 88, they did a world tour that was Sting, Peter Gabriel, Bruce Springsteen, and a couple of other artists, Tracy Chapman and Youssou N'Dour. And they continued these on right through 1990 and 1998. But interestingly, if you might remember with Live Aid happened and was on TV, but never came out at the time on home video.
Right.
And the folks at Amnesty followed suit. They did the same thing. They said, okay, one time on TV, and then we'll put the tapes on the shelf. Now, that's what Amnesty did. That's why these concerts have never been out there before. Now, a few years back, Bob Geldof, the guy behind Live Aid, changed everything. He said, you know what? There's people pirating and bootlegging these tapes, and the charity doesn't benefit. So he put Live Aid out on DVD, and that gave me the idea, you know what? Amnesty's got these fantastic concerts. They should be on DVD as well. And I set to work on it, and a mere 4 years later, we have the DVD box set.
There really are some phenomenal shows on there. You mentioned Sting and Peter Gabriel. Pete Townsend's on there. Jeff Beck, Joe Perry of Aerosmith. Ozzy is on there. Any others that jump out at you?
Oh, well, all the way up to Radiohead, Lou Reed. There's just a huge number. There's over 36 stars on here. And one of the things we did is I wanted to put lots of extras. So there's 12 hours of concerts, but because I'm a crazy obsessive that likes to share all the other stuff, there's 5 hours of bonus features, including Peter Gabriel's home movies, which I found those. They had a great jam session with Bono and Larry from U2, with guys from Peter Gabriel and Lou Reed's band jamming. It was fantastic. And I also thought, wouldn't it be good to get new perspectives on the concerts from the musicians, the major ones? So I went to Sting and Bono, Peter Gabriel, and even managed to get Bruce Springsteen, who never does interviews. He agreed to do an interview for this.
You got the one interview this decade that he does.
Well, the thing is, all of these folks are still dedicated to supporting Amnesty International. I mean, human rights is as basic a thing as there could be. And we even created a little special website where people can get more information about the history of the concerts. It's just humanrightsconcerts.com. and they can find there some clips and examples of why the Stars are so passionate about supporting human rights.
And what's wonderful, not only are these amazing concerts, but they actually have helped affect real change in the world in the area of human rights, along with what the good folks at Amnesty International do, have they not?
Absolutely. In fact, I was asked the impossible. USA Today asked me to pick my favorite 20 songs from the performance. I said, look, it's impossible. There's 146 songs on here, but I did pick my favorite 20, and one of them that I think means the most is a performance of I Shall Be Released, which they performed with all the Stars on stage together. But in addition to the Stars, you had Sting and Bono and Jackson Browne and Lou Reed. In addition to the Stars, they brought on stage 18 political prisoners who were freed and released as a result of Amnesty. And that's like a fusion of cause and content. You understand why you do it when you see people who've been released by Amnesty's work.
I mean, say what you want. You know, it would be nice if just your average person could come on and do a public service announcement and it would get people's attention. But the fact is, when you see one of your favorite celebrities or you see one of your favorite musicians or hear a song, that's what gets your attention. And that really is what brought so much of it into the limelight back in the 70s and 80s, even though the cause and Amnesty International have been around since the 60s. And so it's a wonderful thing that they're continuing to do to this day to bring attention to this, as you mentioned, very basic human need, human rights.
It's absolutely the case. You know what? I'm a textbook example of that because I've never heard of Amnesty when I started out. I was just attracted to it because John Cleese of Monty Python was doing a show. I thought, that sounds good. Maybe I'll help out, get a chance to meet Monty Python. But when I got there, though I was excited to meet Monty Python, I got curious. What's all this about? That led me to being a producer of the show, and that's how I got Pete Townsend involved. And by having Pete Townsend involved, that inspired Sting, Bono, Peter Gabriel, Bruce Springsteen, and that's how it works. We pass the candle forward to the next generation.
One of my favorite quotes of all time from Robert Ingersoll was, "Give to every human being every right that you claim for yourself." And I think that's something that Amnesty International, that's a torch they've been carrying now for over 50 years. And thank you for doing your part in it, sir.
Well, thank you very much for letting me share about this, and I really appreciate your interest.
6-disc DVD box set with concerts, as we mentioned, featuring Sting, Clapton, Springsteen, Bono, Peter Gabriel, and so many more bonus things, like bonus material like interviews and behind-the-scenes clips, all out now in Amnesty International's Human Rights Concerts. Martin Lewis, we thank you for the time.
Pleasure.